Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to the Citizens Chat on Civic Space Show. My name is Agather Atuhaire. I am today's host, sitting in for the regular host, Damian Masisa, who was not able to be here. We are discussing many issues, starting with the prominent persons, politicians, UPDF general that died in the recent past, and really looking at what legacy have they left behind, but also looking at the retirement that happened 2 days ago of the UPDF generals, including one whose retirement he first even went to get from court, but finally it has come, that is General David Sejusa. We also want to also go back to the Kenyan election petition. I know we have discussed it here, but so many changes, so many issues have come to play now with the Supreme Court putting out 9 issues that it will use to determine the petition. But also we have a guest that has not discussed the Kenyan elections and was there observing. We'll have to start with his view of the elections in Kenya that happened on the 8th of August. And to discuss that, I'll start with that special guest, Dr. Kiiza Besigye, the founding president of the Forum for Democratic Change and the current leader of the Red Card Front. You're welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Agatha, and good afternoon to the panelists here, and a very good afternoon, evening to all of you viewers and listeners, wherever you are joining us from. It's always a pleasure to be on the Civic Space chat, and thanks for having me. The election in Kenya was actually on 9th, not 9th. On 8th.
Yes, 9th. Yes.
And yes, I was privileged to be there to see from close quarters how it went. But even before the voting period, which we really observed, an election is much longer than what is focused on, the period around voting. And actually, we have argued that election observers, if they really want to be of significant help to an election, must stay the long haul. Because by the time most observers arrive in the country, the election is already done. The rigging is already completed. Rigged in the freedom long before the election that people have to influence opinion in the country, rigged in how people are free to register to vote and how easy it is for people to register, rigged in the kind of information people have, whether there has been enough civic and voter education so that people know why it is important even to vote and what they should be looking for in a vote and so on and so forth. So all these things are critical, and most observers really never pay attention to them. And then, of course, the most focused on area is the campaigning and nominations, campaigning and polling. And in Kenya, I think anybody who was observing, whether from far or near, has been unanimous in saying that the electoral process was peaceful, that campaigns went on smoothly, all candidates were free to influence and to campaign in campaign rallies, on the media, and in all kinds of other forms of influencing opinion and voting and the voters. And so we arrived, and I met Sarah here in Nairobi when we did. We arrived really on the eve of
the
of the election itself. And these, so I'm in the category that I like to call election tourists.
Okay, let me get back to you on that with more specific questions on the tourists. But also, yes, we also have Dr. Sarah Bireete, the director, the ED of CCG, Center for Constitutional Governance, who was also an election tourist in Kenya. Maybe for her, you're welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Agatha, and good afternoon, viewers.
We also have Major Pollar Awich. Major Pollar Awich, remind me of your position at the NRM Secretariat.
Director, External Services.
External Services. You're welcome to the show, Major.
Thank you.
So I had wanted us to begin with, maybe we can go into the election details of Kenya and the petition much later, but maybe we'll begin by observing a moment of silence for General Tumwine and Honorable Yona Kanyomozi. And then we go into their legacies. General Tumwine as head of court martial at some point, but most recently was the former security minister. Then Honorable Yona Kanyomozi, who was the Minister for Cooperatives in both the Obote 1 and 2 government, and then MP in NRC and the East African Legislative Assembly, passed on Sunday. That date could have been, what date was Sunday? I forget the date. I think I'm not good with the dates. But we want to look at the legacies those two have left behind. But most importantly, what caught my attention was the different reactions to their death, with one being a lot of indifference, also maybe near jubilation that he had died from the public, and which has caused a lot of trouble and sort of hate and tribalistic sentiments, but also with the other being remembered as someone who worked hard for this country, who has been principled and all those things. And I'll begin with you, Dr. Besigye, because I have seen you talk about the reaction from the public over the death of General Tumwine. Please tell us about the legacy of General Tumwine and what you think of that sort of reaction from the public. Well, some sects.
Yeah, well, I maybe should start by joining you to, first of all, convey our condolences to the bereaved families of the Kanyomozis and of the Tumwines. A loss is a loss. And like I've been saying, you know, we are, at the end of the day, all children of God. We all come from Adam. And the reason...
And Sarah.
Eve. It wasn't Sarah.
Eve
Sarah is Abraham.
Eve arrived a little...
Adam also.
Yes, Eve arrived a little later from the scriptures. It was Adam first. And that's why, you know, we are called children of Adam. In Kiswahili, we say bin Adam. Bin is a child of Adam. Bin Adam. And so, at the end of the day, whether you are white, whether you are black, whether you are whatever color you are, or whatever nationality you come from, whether you are European or Asian or whatever, at the end of the day, we are brothers and sisters. And that's why we are a humanity. And we cherish the human spirit, the Ubuntu.
Yes.
And to that extent, we should, you know, feel sad whenever a person dies, whether you are related to them or not. Now, regarding the situation we have here, you see, I think what the death of General Tumwine and others, you know, the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya,
General Okech.
General Okech, the death of people who have been in government, I think have mainly shown how divided the country is, and indeed how embittered a part of that country is. People are bitter, people are hateful. And this is because I think it's understandable. You see, first of all, the first government of that was led by Milton Obote, this was a 9-year spell, 1962 to 1971. But even in those 9 years, there was a lot of bitterness, especially which was generated right from 1966, when there was the attack on Lubiri and the state of emergency in Uganda and violation of human rights and so on. And I was in Kampala here in 1971 when the first Obote government was overthrown. And it was unbelievable, the explosion of joy and the celebration that took place. You know, I saw women, old women climbing on tanks, military tanks, and dancing from the top of tanks, celebrating. And of course, there were many records which are still played now, talking about how this was a wonderful thing. Many of the shops you still find in town called Ani Aliamanyi. There are those names, Ani Aliamanyi. It came from that time. Who knew
That Obote would
that this would
This would happen.
that Obote would go? You know? So, and they were, you know, songs. There is a song which is, you know, saying, talking about how everything was going to Akokolo. Omusoro gwe musoro gwona Akokolo, that all taxes have become taxes, all of them going to Akokolo. Akokolo is the village where Obote came from. Now, I went to Akokolo in 1973. When those songs were actually still very much.
On the taxes, eh?
No, I was passing through. And I found there was absolutely nothing.
to show for the taxes.
No, there was nothing. Up to today, Akokolo is one of the, you know, most humble villages that you can find anywhere. But there was a belief that everything was going to Akokolo. And indeed, there was hatred and so on and so forth. I was here when Idi Amin was overthrown in 1979 and saw, you know, again, the kind of celebration on the one hand and the persecution on the other of those who were believed to come from West Nile, who were all generally called Danyanya. You know, and people were killed, you know, innocent people. Say, oh, this one, he also looks like an Anyanya. You know, you don't ask, he must be an Anyanya. If somebody had, you know, marks on the cheeks or something, they were, you know, hunted. They are Anyanya. Why? Because they believed that there had been injustice occasioned by people from Western Nile. Now, again, just like in the Obote one, very few people in Western Nile actually partook of that injustice. You know, that they benefited and so on. Even up today, when you go to Western Nile, you know, yes, you'll find some scattered shells of some houses that, modern houses that had been constructed and which were destroyed by the Tanzanian army. But in the rest of the place, it is as humble villages as they are anywhere else. And so even now, and Amin's was 8 years, the other one was 9 years. We now have nearly 40 years of leadership of one leader, 40 years. So that bitterness we are talking about was of a small, happened in just brief 9 years and 8 years. But you can imagine now, for 4 decades, and not 4 decades of justice, but 4 decades of actual injustice. Because you see, the reason, you know, the war took place, the war that brought Mr. Museveni to power, which war I, you know, participated in. It occurred because we thought there was an injustice in an election. The first election since independence, 1980 was the very first election since 1962. And so people thought that after so long, so many years of injustice, that now people's voices can be expressed. And I have heard people try to downplay what happened in 1980 as if that war was really not called for. But you know, I can tell you that it was extremely disappointing, having gone through the atrocities that we had gone through in the previous years, to now see when people had developed some euphoria of the liberation and so on, to see again the violations of human rights that were taking place during and around that election. The intimidation, you know, the way the military was behaving, and clearly the arrogance of those who were in UPC, who held the sway. Don't forget, Paulo Mwanga, who was the leader of the military commission, was a UPC and leading a government at the time that was organizing the election.
Deputized by the person that challenged the election.
Yes, but you see, deputies, it's like this lady.
In Kenya?
No, the one here, the deputy president, the vice president. Arupo. Can you say Arupo has power?
She's now receiving instructions from cabinet ministers. She's like a junior minister.
So the leader, the person who had the power, was Paulo Mwanga. But even if you say, you know, Museveni, who was the vice chairman of the military commission, was there, the point, you remember, he himself was arrested around that time. He was actually detained and, you know, eventually, you know, released in a very controversial. So, but the point I'm talking about is the lack of freedom that persisted into that election. And then, when the voting had taken place, we had cast our votes, they were being counted, they were being announced. The same Paulo Mwanga goes on radio in the afternoon following the voting and says, puts a special announcement. And you know, that time Radio Uganda was the only radio. So if there was a special announcement on Radio Uganda, everybody in the country was listening. And he says, with immediate effect, I have dismissed the Electoral Commission. Himself, I have with immediate effect dismissed the Electoral Commission. All the powers of the
declaration of the result.
Yes. All the powers of the commission shall be exercised by myself. It will be only the chairman of the military commission to announce the results. And he imposed the stiff conditions for anybody who attempted to do so. You know, the chairman of the electoral commission was my own uncle, a man called Kosia Chichira. He's now, you know, is pastor. The secretary was a man, he has been around as a permanent secretary, a man called Sekono. you know. So the election was hijacked by a leader of a party that was contesting in the election. So clearly we knew that, you know, this whole war and the suffering it caused and so on had not brought liberation. And then, you know, again, some of us, that was, you know, very disappointing, but it could not even have forced me to go to war, except that following that, indeed, some people went and started the war, and they had, you know, Museveni was threatening even before that he would go to war. And when he did, some of us were then fell victims. I was arrested, detained, tortured.
Were you a member of UPM?
Yes. And just because I had been a member, I was not an active politician, I was not anything, except that I had been seen campaigning, you know, and many people I was with in jail, here in the International Conference Center,
Nile Hotel.
which was Nile Hotel. In fact, rooms in the Nile Hotel were torture chambers, room 211, room 226, 223, I think, room, you know. Many people I was with in that prison have never been seen again. So the violations of rights, the muzzling of people's voices in an election, you know, is what sparked the war. But in that election, if my memory serves me right, only one person was killed in 1980 in that violent campaign. Only one person was killed. So now, fast forward, those people who went to fight because of that, and the fighting itself left nearly 500,000 people dead. The skulls are still scattered all over the place. Huge amounts of personal properties destroyed, people's houses, plantations, livelihoods destroyed. Now, look at what has happened in these 37 years, you know?
Yes.
The injustices that speak for themselves. Every election, not just one person dies. You know, every election is like a war front. In 1980, I didn't even see, you know, armored vehicles coming out because there is an election, armored vehicles and all other paraphernalia of the military and the police and the militias, you know. So this is what has punctuated the 37 years. Violation of political rights, violation of human rights, violation of economic rights, you know. How some people have everything, access to everything. If you want a job and you think you'll go and sit and interview and pass it and be given a job, it cannot happen. In fact, this Kanyomozi, whom we are also, you know, talking about as having passed now,
Yes.
sat an interview for they were looking for UEB. He was the best without any doubt.
Yeah.
He didn't get the job because he was UPC. He was UPC.
I think I was the first victim at the higher level.
So that is the order of the day. You don't get a job unless you know someone. You don't get a business unless you know someone. The assets that we had collected collectively as Ugandans, the public assets, all the corporations, state corporations that were supposed to have been privatized, were privatized to a club of people, a few people who took all the hotels. We had a hotel in every town, Uganda hotels. You know, who owns the Uganda hotels? If you go to Atuhaire Inn, you'll find it is General One, a crony of these ones. Elira Hotel, it is, I don't know whether he has passed it on. This other
You can tell us.
Angola. If you
Soroti.
go to Rock Hotel, where you
Yeah.
know, or just a club of
Yeah.
people who
They've grabbed all of
privatized
them.
all our wealth to themselves. This Uganda airline,
Did
which
they
is
pay? Oh, good, just to grab.
this is the whole thing. Where is that's the next question. All these things which were privatized, where is the check that was written that we collected all this money? This is how much was collected. Nothing. You know, Uganda airline we are talking about. Uganda airline cannot function, and it's a national airline cannot function profitably if ground handling, which is should be their monopoly, is not there. What killed the old Uganda airline is that they disemboweled it, took out all the intestines and so on, and gave them to Sam Kutesa and General Saleh. You know, what is now called NHAS, you know. So, and that's what has gone on for all, not just Uganda. Look at what happened to the land that belonged to Uganda Railways, the land that belonged to Commercial Bank, and the Commercial Bank itself. Who took the Commercial Bank? It was first taken by General Saleh, you know, for a song. we had just capitalized Commercial Bank with 72 billion cash from Bank of Uganda. We had recapitalized the bank, and it was sold to Saleh for 11. So and the money was still in the so. You know, this is the economic injustice that has taken place. All 30-something years. As people become poorer, they are taxing, pulling whatever little they have, the taxes, ever rising, but nothing going back. If you are sick, you are on your own. Children are now supposed to go back to school. There is nothing. Nobody has money to take back the children back to school, because even the money of last time they haven't paid. They cannot take. That is the crisis in the country. Yet some people don't even know what to do with the money.
So it's the crisis that
you saw the mourners of General Tumwine saying we should buy an aeroplane
for
to take the widow to be going to check on the cows. We must really buy an aeroplane. And if you people don't want to tell me,
I will buy it
myself so that, you know, she can go and look after the cows without hassles. Now, these things are being listened to. People are saying, yes, people who are being chased out of houses, who have no house rent, who have no food. Their children, you see young mothers carrying their children hopelessly on the streets. So the hatred must be understood to arise out of the injustice. It's not new, in other words. It was there during Amin's time, it was there during Obote 1, it was there during Obote 2, and it is now simply far worse, because frankly, I have lived through all these regimes. I have never seen anything close to what we can see now in terms of injustice, you know?
Thank you.
Really, it's not tribalism. No, it's anger against injustice. And it will go anywhere.
Major, which has been itching to respond to that. I'll bring in Sarah later, but the reason I bring you now is you are a representative of this party, the junta. What we are talking about. If as Dr. Besigye says, if there's that anger after just 8 years of Amin in the 70s, or after just 5 years of Obote 2 or 4, it is worse now that, but you guys are interpreting it as Baganda, who are, because that's how it has been interpreted.
They want to blackmail Bobo.
I think so, or Baganda. Don't you think the party is looking at the effects rather than the causes of what is going on, of the crisis we face now? But start with your general views about General Tumwine's death.
Thank you so much. Thank you, viewers. And thank you, my fellow panelists. I was actually itching indeed, but more itching to talk about the legacy than the general framework that doctor says, because I need to make an environment on an issue I've prepared before. And that's you're a lawyer, that's why they'll always ask court for adjournment. So I came with this mind. I didn't come with this mind on that. So I came really for the legacy. I came for the legacy.
But this is legacy.
No, so the legacy in particular terms for the two persons whom I really had privilege to interact closely with them. Yesterday I saw doctor in the church, and I was in church. Here is our person.
Yes.
I start with him. What links me with him is that he happens to have been a pioneer lot of the great school I went to, and that is in Tari School. They're in the league of Professor Stanley Tumwine, the doctor, Kikeire, Ambassador Swaib Musoke, from Badro Wegulu, who was the chairman UPC at one time, late Professor Mujaju. They're really prominent old boys. So I really cherish them. I went to the same school, so I got to know them. And also, I have been chairman for the old boys for 2 Kisanja. So that gives me an in-depth knowledge of even old boys who were pioneer in 1956. They started in Tari School in 1956. They're the pioneer lot. So I got to know him. And I've been interacting with him. Whenever we go to school for an activity, say on Saturday, we go on Friday, we debate with the children at night. Then as a precursor for the next day. But also in national debate like we are doing with the doctor, we have been appearing with him so many times on KFM and other radio stations, although he appears advocating for UPC, and I talk on behalf of my beloved party, mighty NRM. And he's particularly intelligent. He was a very intelligent man, and if you don't get hold of him in a debate, he would slip away. For example, I remember at one time, on KF were me and General Masiko. So Obi was saying, he had you discuss about the wrongs, like Dr. Besigye is saying. And then when General Masiko came to talk, he said, I partly agree with you, and Kanyomozi said, you will end up agreeing with me only. So he got back and said, you partly agree, you will end up agreeing with me only. So his legacy is a legacy of a society of meritocracy. It came up on merit, except on the complaint that you're having, especially at his young age. He was a bright young man. He finished in Tari School, of course, 6 years. By then, you do junior in Umbara High School. He did junior in Umbara High School, went to Tari for 6 years, went to university, did very well. He went to London School of Economics. It was really thorough.
No, correction, he went to Nairobi for his A-levels.
Then London School.
Yeah.
No, the London in the Nairobi was a university. His record is here. You want to read it?
Oh, well, let's go.
Nairobi was a university. And many people went to Nairobi for other economic causes. For example, Matia Kasaija and Minister of Trade.
Under the Federation, under
Nairobi was university mainly for technology and economics. Makere was education and medicine. That's why the Dr. Besigye. Then Dar es Salaam was social science and law. So the Nairobi you're saying is a university. It is here. So he paved through on merit, and he really served the country. That was a time, I think, when the country conceived an idea that cooperative would help. It did work on the cooperative because, first of all, you'd get funding, implements, and others. 2, you don't get stuck with your produce. You'd be sure of market, and it was visible. Many people paid school fees through corporate. So he had a legacy, and he worked all over East Africa. East Africa. He went to the Legislative Assembly, and you could really see you could actually quantify his input. So he has lived through a legacy. I really wish I could just do a fraction of what he did. So I think we could just tell our young persons that stick to the virtue that you believe in. I have no regret that I stuck to UPC even when I'm in NRM. I'm actually happy that it showed this principle there. So That is him. He has lived a legacy. And that's why in church, all the words which kept coming was that we celebrate his life, we celebrate his life. Not that we are mourning. So that is it. Now, coming to General Tumwine, of course, senior old boy didn't have the divide in society. Nobody said anything. Not even the DP who were against UPC, or not even NRM who fought UPC. He had nothing against him. But General Tumwine, there was a lot. And of course, I must say that in society, you can't expect everybody to love you. But by far, he had a big legacy. He contributed to the development of an army. There could be challenges in the army, but by far, UPDF is coming to its institutionalization as a professional army. In terms of discipline, we also expect in terms of national composition, in terms of training, in terms of ability to put boots on the ground like we did in Somali, in every respect. So, and that is the army which he developed. I also personally dealt with him at personal level, so I was keen to know what he is. In the 1986, Doctor, there was a program about reorganizing former soldiers because the decision was taken by NRA that Amin soldiers were taken to Luzira and others taken to Tanzania as war prisoners. So now the fear was that what will NRA do with these other armies? So the decision was that these armies were misled by their leaders, so for them, the innocent Ugandans, reorganize them and join them. So they said, however, before you make them join, take them through a political education. And a reorganization center was created in Kiburara. Unfortunately, you had too many people, Kiburara in Ibanda. So people started dying. And because many soldiers were from the north, people thought that it was a detention camp for killing former soldiers.
They died of what?
So it was general sanitation, and because the environment was small, maybe the doctors would know, but the environment was small. You know, it's a prison camp, but I mean a prison, but at that time it would contain like 10,000 people. Small, and the sanitation was so poor. So people were dying. So at that time, there was a body called Implementation Committee, which was chaired by Atuhaire. He was the army commander. So they said now, a political commissioner then was some Rwanda man called Kamanzi. Went to Rwanda and died. He was a university graduate. So Kamanzi wasn't stable in Kiburara. So they said, we need a commissar. We need a commissar there. People are dying. So in the implementation committee, me, I was in Entebbe State Lodge, that State Lodge where you oversee the zoo. It is now, I think, by PGB, between Ministry of Agriculture and the zoo. Yeah. So you'd oversee that. We had gone there military after another captured power. We were there. So from Kampala, I was told, you are the PC Kiburara. I was a baby. I said, how? Why? But of course, Doctor knows that many people had been schooled in NRM. The political awareness, including those who had left Kampala as mechanics. When they went and joined NRM, the consciousness, everybody was apparently clear-headed. How I wish we had remained as that.
So you were taken to Chibuda?
I was taken as political by Tumwine himself. So I asked Ondoga, I said, how did it come that my name came as a political commissar of a big unit like this, of such political significance? I said it was Tumwine. Because we had been interacting before, he knew my questions, my conversations, what in all the meetings that we would have in Barazas and all, whichever unit that would meet. So he sent me, and I went to Kiburara, and I changed things. I signed an agreement with Igong Hospital in Ibanda Hospital, that Catholic hospital. The people were now treated and death reduced. That was my humble contribution at that stage. So for him to have picked me at that early part of the development of the army, I think it was so something. So and again we've been meeting Pan-African and other things. So he did his part, he developed the army. He went to legislature, he continued, and he was part of the brains that helped in several legislations. And he would always speak his mind. And above all, guiding. So by far, I think he had legacy. And I must say at this point that President Museveni in Kololo told the wife that you ignore those who are talking. Your husband has done enough. I think that was a fair comment, because I know if he had come rough and hard, some of our cadres in various organs would misinterpret it and say they would do something. Or they would think this was a polite command by commander.
But what about
Museveni said, ignore whatever other people are saying, you move on.
But what about
and that is it.
Major Awich, having talked about the good things he did and the contribution, what do you say about the wrong things he did? Are there any?
I don't know any wrong he did. But for example, if you even take me to the army, there could have been operational errors that he did. For example, the president was joking about it, that he did the first shooting in Kabama was a mistake. He shouldn't have shot because it alerted the enemies. But even as an army commander, he took decisions, including transfers and promotions. Somebody could cry.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe you have at the back of your mind this infamous statement of police shooting. I think, first of all, it was a long speech, and they took that particular one. But I think what he was saying is that under the law, police, there are terms of engagement between the police, even in their professional training, restraint of public, preventing rioting. So what he was saying is that in the event, and under the law, in the event that you move and you want to kill the police may shoot you. But that one was completely, of course, taken as a bit. They left the whole long statement, zeroed on that, and I think that is what people think was wrong.
Thank you.
But by far, he did his part, and we are yet to see how we do ours, and we shall be judged.
So
at the end.
Major Awich is trying to give us an interpretation of that statement, but maybe it doesn't even matter talking about that particular statement now. But Sarah, I would like you to also, where Major Awich fails or shies away from responding to what Dr. Besigye says about the injustices that are happening, that are making Ugandans look at everyone serving this government as a problem, so that their death looks like maybe one problem down. Of course, in relation to really your views about General Tumwine's legacy.
And Yona
Honorable Kanyomozi, yes.
Both of them were personal friends. I met them as a youth leader, youth activist, when I used to mobilize several youth from mainly 7 countries in the Great Lakes region for peace in the 2000s. I would have long conversations with the late Kanyomozi. He was passionate about having a productive economy for everyone. He was passionate about the plight of the ordinary people. And he used to complain on the approach towards the economy by NRM, or what he would call a border economy. And his concerns were that Ugandans are only controlling border economy. When you go to banks, I think now all our banks are foreign. Having phased out Green Bank, maybe Post-Bank and the Centenary. By the other Uganda indigenous banks,
Housing Bank,
collapsed. Housing Bank, you kept
Finance.
it because of Mbabazi's presidential ambition. National Bank of Commerce.
No, Housing Finance, which is a government bank.
Yeah, we have Post-Bank, which is also government, and a Centenary and Housing Finance, but the rest have been phased out. And mainly for political reasons, especially given the last court ruling about Green Bank, where the bank won, and I don't know who is paying damages, maybe the people who took decisions. We need to move.
Government.
We need to move some of these public interest litigation to make sure people who take wrong decisions personally bear some of these burdens in costs. And
but the danger there would be even those who went to court, if they lose, they would pay. For now, if you take a public litigation against Attorney General, for example, if Attorney General win, he has a tendency of letting you go.
No, but
it's
court to award. It's not
up
to the Attorney General. It's court to award costs.
Yes,
so it's not the Attorney General.
So I'm saying, if you took up a case on public matter,
Mm.
and then you lose.
No, it's not the same as what Sarah is saying.
We
What
are
Sarah
talking
is
about
saying
different things. I'm
is
saying people who take wrong decisions, especially where right advice was given, they should be punished individually. Because as a country, I saw the Minister of Finance recently saying we are bankrupt as a country. And I'm also aware that some government agencies, people have not received salaries and wages for 5 months.
No, but can I make this clarification?
Yes.
That if you're a PS in police, I mean, it's a accounting office in police, and you make a wrong decision and court awards, you're personally liable. For example, an RDC got cows which were recovered from Karamojong by the army. The army recovered it, the stolen cows, gave to the RDC to give back to the civilians. The RDC stole it. These guys went to Human Rights Court. Human Rights Court ruled. The office of the president said RDC pay. They left him at work but kept cutting his salary. So
Yes,
but what I'm saying is, if you sued this case and you lost, who would pay?
No.
Then you should also pay. Meanwhile now, so right now, it is a matter, a guiding principle to all accounting officers. You make a mistake, Sassola.
Yeah, a guiding principle is different from a law. I'm talking of a law. I know that under the Human Rights Enforcement Act, people pay for their mistakes directly. That's why they are sued even in individual capacity. What I'm talking about is that we need to extend this to economic losses and economic damage done to a country, especially where the right advice was available and you can't claim to have made a mistake. Because these are political decisions. They are not mistakes. It's a political decision to close Ukraine Bank. It's a political decision to close the National Bank of Commerce because Mama Mbabas is going to contest and is a partner.
Even a cooperative bank.
Yes, the Greenland Bank and the frustration for the rates. All these are political decisions. So we need to move a step to make sure that just like in human rights, people pay. And it's a law. That's my submission.
Yes.
What you are talking about is a guiding policy and it is a ministry kind of thing. It's not a law. It's not a national law. It's not in an act of parliament. Yes.
Yeah.
So away from that, of course, Yona achieved many things, including when he was an assistant general manager for telecommunications in East Africa. And he moved a decision to build the communications house. And then they work under the transport, Uganda Transport and the transport company, national.
Bireete.
Yes, I'm told there are some offices still in Kawempe, and I don't know, since NRM grabbed everything, I don't know what it is doing.
UTGC maybe.
Yes, so if you come to General Tumwine was also a personal friend in various capacities. His family are my friends, and I will talk building on to, and he achieved many things. I also believe that they are not perfect human beings. But my point of departure is when you are holding an office in trust of the people, I think we need to be conscious of our conduct. Whereas if I'm in my kitchen and I'm annoyed, I might decide how to shout at my children. When I come to Civic Space TV, I cannot do the same because I am communicating to the public. So in the heat of the moment, after the execution of 54 citizens, I will talk about 3 victims in those executions for purposes of demonstrating my point. One is the first victim, the lady food vendor who fell, who was the first casualty of that brutality, trying to move around with plates of food to some office. Shot, dead, on Kampala Road. She had nothing whatsoever to do with the protest. The second victim I would like to talk about is a boy who had gone out to buy airtime along that corner of Makerere going to Kawempe. How is it called? Kakande's, near Kakande's.
Could be.
A P7 boy. Sent quickly by the parents. Maybe the parents realized that there is chaos, shops are going to close and they are unable to communicate. Rush and buy airtime for us. Killed. The third victim I like to talk about is the retired lecturer of UMI, who was trying to go to the ATM. Shot dead. I have just randomly picked 3 victims to show you that even the argument, the legal argument that my learned colleague, Awich, is trying to impute in this discussion of using reasonable force or responding proportionately does not apply to the Kampala executions of 54 people. It does not apply. You cannot even, yes, you are trying to argue that the police can shoot. When you are faced with excessive force, you can act proportionately, legally, using proportionate force according to the threat you are faced with. That is the only defense in case of a mistake of a police shooting a civilian that is available to a police officer. Proportionate force according to the threat you are being faced with. That is the only available defense. So the argument that the police can shoot people does not exist. But that is the only available defense in the case of such an event.
Yeah, but that has turned out to define your friend's legacy.
No, I was coming and I'm coming to what. Of course, friendship doesn't matter in public issues.
I know.
I just disclose
so
for
that you
purposes.
defend him.
No. He also used to call me out whenever he thought I made mistakes. Yeah, friendship does not mean covering up mistakes or telling the public lies. It doesn't. So when it comes to the divide between society, which is extreme, so we have the regime in a very extreme position, and yet they control the instruments of violence. They are extremists. Of course, I'm generalizing for this matter. I don't want Awich to take it personal. Many people in the government offices, especially security, are extremists. And they think they own Uganda with arrogance in an aggressive man, aggressive arrogance. When you come to the people who are victims of the long-term injustice, tribalism, which we shouldn't shy away from under NRM. So one time, I bought a special hire car from Kawaragara, I think around 2015. So the debate for age limit had started. And the driver looked at him and said, hey, anyway, let me just take this Munyangore.
But you don't look, you don't.
I know I don't obviously look like a Munyangore, but at times you can't hide it.
I thought he had said, you are in Uganda, let me take you.
No, he said anyway. But Abanyangore nawe muture, but we are tired of you. So I said, what is it? He said, no. So we passed the Chubudi. He said, you know, and he was like above 50. He said, you know, I've been here for some time. I saw the Kakwa when they were staying in Chuburu flats. They used to occupy the second and the third floor and then urinate on people on the first floor. He said, I saw this Kakwa with their arrogance urinating on people, but when I'm in fail, that even now to see a Kakwa in Kampala is a problem. He said, even you, Banyangore, we shall survive you. Your time will come. So I said, who is this one talking like this? Because really, by the time of Vidamin, I was a baby. I don't have any experience of that. And NRM junta having come when I was in primary 4. It is what I have experienced. And but these are the sentiments in society that you can. So he was comparing Banyangore with the Kakwa. And with the same sentiment that the doctor talked about. Whenever there is a strike or protest in Kampala, I remember very well the Kayunga riots. I happened to be again in Chuburu side then. So somebody calls me, and a relative, because I have children from another tribe from Central. So he calls me and says, "Are you home?" I said, "No." He said, "You know they are chopping over Nyankori. Find your way home in 20 minutes, or they will chop you into pieces." I'm sure in Kayunga riots, most of us know what was happening. So that sentiment came on the floor for all of us to see. I have a friend who is very light-skinned from Mbale, Mugisu. He was working in office of Prime Minister as a commissioner. And that was the time when people were receiving delegates for the African Union conference. So he had a delegation to receive and tried to find his way to Entebbe. He was beaten. His head was cut into pieces for being mistaken for Munyankore. Because of being light-skinned. Yes! So unless we face reality, we shall not solve the problem of our society. And what is happening in society? You know, there are jobs that must go to certain people. Recently, my colleagues in civil society, we normally do internships. So they happened to intern with the young Bahima students. And according to the supervisor, the interns were not listening to what they were being guided to do. They said, anyway, we are just here as a job requirement. If time we just want to finish it. No, they had a job, but they had to do internship. So they tell you, say, for us, our jobs are ready. All we want is this paper. I don't know whether it was academic or job. They said, so they said, my job is ready at URA. They don't bother me with your assignments. Just sign for us our thing and we go. So you have a society or a group of citizens that feel that Uganda is theirs, their jobs are ready. We saw a lot of people when our children were stuck during COVID that could not study. Many people took their children abroad. But how many people had the means, or who had the means? When people fall sick, others to get money for Panadol is a miracle. And then you have others with the luxury of seeking medical care anywhere in the world. This is a society we have built under NRM, and we must face the consequences and solve them than hiding our heads in the sand.
Thank you, sir. And I am glad both of you talked about really the causes of what is happening. I had misunderstood Dr. Besigye from what Ronald Muhinda is reporting on Twitter to be also blaming Ugandans who are
No. Of course, two wrongs don't make a right.
You see, the thing is, for me, I am thinking that what you actually both said here explain it very well. That people don't choose how to feel about something. We feel, we react naturally. So if you have here what you describe, that you have people that are not eating, but others have enough to say, I have seen a quotation of a plane, I can buy it. You're going naturally, you are going to create that. You're going to create a sentiment that when will we ever get rid of these people, and there's no other way that people maybe seem feasible than that. When I was saying you don't look like Wanyankore, I was thinking, not how you look, but I was told during the Uganda riot, said, for you of your nose, if you pass somewhere. So I was told they look at the nose. I didn't know they look at the color now. So Dr. Besigye, before we take a break, let me take you back. You didn't say much about Honorable Kanyomozi. And what I want to ask about him, you had touched on it where you said that you see some people say the 1980 war was not called for. He told me that in a recent interview, where he said that you, the people that went with President Museveni for that war, were duped because it was an excuse he had harbored for long, and you also said that he had talked about waging a war. So in light of that, maybe you can respond to the war, but also generally about Honorable Kanyomozi's legacy.
No, you see, we must separate the causes of the war from the intentions of Museveni.
Yeah.
I think the causes were legitimate. and I think it was a legitimate struggle. The means of the struggle, which was arms, taking up arms, is one which I have reflected on and considered as inappropriate. But I have learned that through having done so and seen the effects. But that there was need to struggle, I have absolutely no doubt, because as I have pointed out, the situation we are in is literally the same situation we were in then, is the same situation we were in even before 1981 of state capture, when a cabal of people hold all power of the state, control the wealth of the country. Institutions service them rather than service the country. You know, in other words, they are the institutions. Like you are seeing today, you know that there is a board somewhere calling advertising for a job, and then somebody just appoints. You know,
Someone was saying that the job is waiting for them.
Yes. So that personalization of the state, privatization of the state, capture of the state is a matter that was there then, that is there now, and the reasons therefore we have now to fight are the same reasons we had then to fight. Now, Museveni's reasons for fighting, he has shown that they are different. Because if we were indeed having the same reasons, then we would not be having the reason to fight again, because we succeeded.
Yeah.
Our fight succeeded. And so if we all had believed that we are fighting so that we democratize the country, power, we democratize power, we have all equal opportunities, we develop the country according to, you know, the constitution and the rule of law. You know, if that had been the case, then we would be at a different place now. So clearly, Museveni had his own objectives, but that's not to say that, you know, I've told you, you see, even now, I suspect that they are possibly, even after so long, not very forgivable, but there are, I'm sure, people in NRM who don't really know what is going on, who don't know the numbers of people that are killed, who don't know what goes on in election. I'm sure they are there.
There's a lawyer who was a former president of the Ugandan Law Society, Chinobe, who they told him, no, the number is not 20, and he said, I don't care, don't. On TV.
Yes.
He said he doesn't care whether they are 20 or 100.
Yeah. So
It's as if he's referring to insects.
yeah. So I cannot say that the Honorable Kanyomozi was wrong if he believed that there was no reason to fight. Maybe that was a genuinely held view. But I'm sure he knows that he knew that the 1980 elections were rigged. Because as I have told you, the action of Paul Muwanga was a public action. He staged a coup, a public coup, abolished the commission, took over its powers. This is not in debate. I've never had anybody debating whether he did so or not. And that cannot make that a credible election. The results are credible results. You know, we've always referred to what happened in Kabari, where actually the loser, a man called Katama, had congratulated the winner, Chitariko, of DP. Only to hear Muwanga announcing him the winner, the one who had congratulated the other one. And he first thought it was a mistake, but eventually he said, you are a fool, come and get sworn in. And he was sworn in and stayed in parliament for 5 years, while Chitariko stayed 5 years in court. By the time the government was overthrown, the case had not been determined. So the causes were there. Now, even when, having said that, the Honorable Yona Kanyomozi, I must say, was a very fair-minded person. And indeed, I believe he was committed to, observance of human rights, because even under UPC, actually UPC got divided. There were two factions. One called the Science and the other one called the Syndicate. And the people of the Syndicate were the Rurangarangas, the Wakasisis, the very aggressive and radical and associated with some of the
I sent my mother a message that I was where Wakasisi was speaking at the vigil of Yona Kanyomozi. And she said, go home, because oh my God, my mother and hearing Wakasisi.
Yes, so and I think they were,
He's now presidential advisor.
Yes, on security. So Kanyomozi was not in that syndicate. Kanyomozi was a member of Science. And these were the people who were calling for, yes, they were calling for moderation, they were calling for, a different kind of trajectory. So I think even within his UPC, he was a reasonable voice, a voice for good. Now, so regarding, what, Yona, as I have said, could have, like many of his colleagues in UPC, taken the easier route of seeking personal advancement by being co-opted.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons, some of us really cherish his position to the end, and in the funeral service yesterday, there was a lot of that talk by the bishop, ending well, fighting a good fight and ending well without, rolling yourself in mud at the end or something like that. I think we must, really respect him for having taken a position, and I think my brother here pointed it out that he held on to his position. He was principled. He took a principle, which is a major problem now, amongst our people, that, you cannot stand and hold your ground and say, this is my position, so that people know what to identify you with. There are people justifying this. I've been hearing a lot of justification about my brother Norbert Mao's surrender to the junta, that he's going to organize, I don't know, dialogue or what. You know that cannot happen. And anybody who has been living we know that there is even dialogue to achieve what, because the dialogue maybe can lead to some reforms, legal reforms, constitutional reforms. Let them first respect those which are there now, even as you go. So, yes, I think Yona has gone home, and I think we must thank the Lord for that, successfully going home without undermining what he has stood for all his life.
Thank you very much, Dr. Besigye. I think let's take a short commercial break, but I wanted us to go back a bit to what this means for our country, that you have people celebrating death and you have others being prosecuted. There's a lady that the lawyer at office was going to look for who was arrested for celebrating that General Tumwine had died. But then there's an NRM person.
So what would be the charge?
Well, that's what I want to talk about, I think, briefly before we go into talking about the election petition in Kenya and maybe what it means without going into the merits and the merits of it. We'll take a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back from that short break. We're glad you're still here on Civic Space TV, and the show is the Citizens Chat Show, where I have Dr. Kiiza Besigye, Dr. Sarah Bireete, and Major Pollar Awich discussing the issues that have happened during the week. We were talking about the deaths of two prominent persons in the country and the reaction mainly that has come with it. And there has been allegations of arrests of some of the people that were said to have celebrated General Tumwine's death. But also there were talks. There's the man who heads the health monitoring unit, Dr. Warren Namara, who stood at the vigil and also said, Nganda, you will also die, speaking about the Honorable Semuju Nganda of Chira municipality. And there's a tendency of us attacking the effects of what is happening and not the cause. I don't know if, and I'll start with you, Major Awich, if the NRM thinks about what is causing this. Can we look at how to deal with what is causing human beings naturally who should really be shocked by death or who should be empathetic to feel this way? And then there's also an NRM supporter who abused people and dressed. I don't know if you people watched that video, and said, Baganda, you will die, and abused the Kabaka and the Katikiro and everyone. And that one, no one has said he has been arrested. So we see that the injustices that are leading to what is happening are still continuing. Major Awich, what does your party and this government think about that?
Thank you so much. Your question is a consolidation of many issues. I just hope I can come out of it.
Yeah, briefly.
And it
please.
makes sense. First of all, if you put it like the now appearing like tribal sentiments that is coming out, regardless of who is saying it, whether it is being said by an NRM cadre or being said by a NUP cadre, it is really unfortunate. Dr. Besigye is here. He knows that right from the early stage of the movement, it was committed to building a national country, national unity. And it rolled over for some time that it appeared to have been achieving, to the extent that for a long time, we in NRM kept on flagging it as an achievement. In real sense that it had reached a point when a Karamojong is in Rukunjiri, for example, and is ringing on his mobile phone talking to people at home, nobody's bothered. He will go, stand, talk, and even if there's another table of other Bachiga in that table, who would care? I mean, he's talking his language. And over time, we appear to have achieved that. And we are proud of it. And in all electoral processes, we have been flagging it that we achieved national unity. But the way things are happening now appears like we are regressing as a country. Now, the question then comes, why? Some people may think it is political actors who are actually planting a few people in the advancement of technology. Because if somebody does it using the social media with the advancements of technology, it may purport to be a tribal a tribal voice when it is an individual voice. But also somebody will think, no, it is true, there's sentiments, and can we investigate and find out why this is coming up? So it's a matter of concern in as far as national unity is concerned. And if it is true that is a reflection of genuine sentiments, or even if it is being perpetuated by some political actors prompting the innocent population, it's so dangerous for a country. It's one step towards genocide. So it's a concern to us as a party. Why is this happening? Is it genuinely there's a tribal sentiment, or it is being planted? Because in the past, even legislations had come about anti-sectarian law or something like that, where if you mention some particular usage of some particular in a negative way, it would attract legal sanction, criminal sanction.
How about those who practice?
But I do believe that even if you criminalize somebody and penalize them, to me, you'd have just cured the symptoms, but not the cause. So I like to say that it's a matter of concern, and the party is concerned, it will go down to the
Let me
roots.
get a quick clarification from what you are saying, with your permission. The injustices we are talking about, do you recognize them? That, you know, people cannot compete for jobs fairly and have equal opportunity in employment, that they cannot compete for business equally and have fairness in sharing of what opportunities there are in business, that, you know, healthcare, that some people are facilitated to get to better centers while others can't. Those injustices which we talked about as a cause, do you recognize them as present?
You see, doctor, you're a scientist and I'm a lawyer. Scientists, I know for a fact that you talk out of evidence-based.
Even lawyers.
But also lawyers talk with the evidence-based. For me to swear an affidavit or to depend on that, I need facts to state that Okello was supposed to get this job. Okello didn't get. A one Rwabantu was given.
Well,
Okello was supposed to fly to this for treatment. A one Rwabantu.
Well, if
I don't have that evidence,
no,
then I can't.
there is fresh evidence before you
Uganda Airlines.
of Uganda Airlines,
What more
where
evidence do you want?
where this is the top
He will
job.
tell you that he
This is
needs
the top
to
of job
open
of the airline.
So who was supposed to get it?
Where somebody says,
People,
I was going to apply,
for
And
the
I
8
was
people
doing the
applied.
job. Because others
For the 8
had
people
applied.
applied.
and our money was spent in the
90
process.
million paid to KPMG
Yes,
to recruit.
our money was
Is that
spent,
evidence?
and instead a telephone call came and the job was granted. And as you know, this is not an isolated case. There have been so many other cases reported, and if you want, we can go through them. But the question was, do you recognize that, you know, I don't know whether you need evidence that some people are able to be treated abroad and others can't. You know, I have a very painful case of a young man, 24 years, who got an accident and broke his back. I've been chatting with him. He's from Fort Portal. He's been paralyzed for 3 years now. He was recommended to have surgery in India. The surgery needs, I think, about $40,000. He clearly has. He has his father. The reason
Doctor, you were informing me.
the reason.
But you have talked
No. I'm just.
time.
You asked for evidence.
Demonstrating.
You are the one who asked for evidence.
But should be brief. So you should be brief.
The man said he has no evidence, and
I'm just giving evidence. So you know, there is this young man. His father. The reason this young man approached me, his father was a veteran. He was our colleague in the military. He's passed on, you know, and this young man got an accident. He's 3 years. He has no hope of ever standing, even though his case is correctable in the right facility. Yet, You know, there are those, I don't know whether even the Tumwine we are talking about went through the medical board and all these things that we talk about and all the people who go abroad. So the question is, do you recognize that
Is
injustice
that enough
or
evidence?
you want more evidence?
You can add on PhD Rover coffee.
No, I really must, in a polite way, say
Including State House scholarships when others can't get.
I don't see that evidence. But as I say, I don't see it. Because as I said, the medical board that you mentioned, a medical board is actually a nationally constituted body. That I know for a fact that people from Atuhaire, at least I know one person from Atuhaire, who applied and went out.
But we are really not specifically talking about tribalism, but nepotism. This person from Atuhaire could have, because you are in this government and you're from Lango, right? So it's really about that me, I might be from Ankole, but I don't get a job.
Actually, even that one might be worse, given that the minister is from Lango.
Exactly. So we are talking about the general minister. But Major Awich, you started by saying you know that these are symptoms, not the causes, and you're looking into it. What are you looking into if you're saying there's no evidence?
No, I had put two propositions. I had said one proposition is that the national unity is there, NRM as United People, you go to Rukunjiri, you are Karamojong, nobody's brothers, and that there are some political actors who are stage managing using the advancement of technology. I said that is one school of thought. Yeah. Then I was being as fair as possible. That the other school of thought is saying, just a minute, maybe it is not that. Could it be that there is genuinely grounds? And that is when I said, we are concerned and we are going to find out. Okay? I gave two, I thought I was being as fair as possible. So,
as fair was truthful.
Yes, as truthful. So this is the position, but the intentions, and which is manifested even in manifestos and even in practice, is that national unity is a prerequisite for a stable country, for development. And these sentiments, and I say it again, whether it is coming from an NRM cadre, no, is not good for us.
Okay. Thank you, Major Awich. Sarah, the question I want to ask as we end on this topic is, what does this mean for this country?
Okay, before I come to
I have heard an elder say the ingredients of instability.
Yeah,
you see that
I think people who want to blackmail Honorable Robert Chagulanyi over this sentiment are ill-intentioned. One, we don't have a national code on how people should mourn the passing of leaders. Emotions, society's emotions are a result of so many things, and we all have different ways of how we feel the cohesion, the oneness, the unity and belonging as citizens of Uganda. I know that under NIM, if you don't know anybody, it's difficult to get a service, even including a basic service.
Which is your assumption.
I'm coming.
Your assumption.
It's not an assumption. I know that even, and as a lawyer, that even reporting a police case and getting response at times takes a call. As to which DPC do you know? Which are this station? So normally in legal practice, you have a person who has been arrested. You first check, do I know somebody here? If you don't, then you find you have to call somebody else. To call people in that state. True or false?
True.
Getting basic services in this country without knowing a person is almost impossible. So if basic things like getting police help needs people making a call, then how about medical? How about we saw people during COVID struggling with health care and including vaccines? We saw at some point there was vaccine hoarding. Then you had to call and say, I'm due for a second job. Where do I go? We all experienced this. When we don't say it, it's because maybe you think there is something to salvage. But if we don't speak truth to one another, then who's going to save this country? I don't know what the leadership feels. I think they've lost touch over time. They might, other than asking people, like what I see the president saying, you people, I sent you for the cost of coffee in the other supermarket, where is it? I sent you for the cost of this. Of course, by nature of their offices, which they've occupied permanently, they don't know other than sending people to say, what is the cost of this? So you have, first of all, it's very abnormal to have a permanent presidency. Very abnormal. The presidency comes with natural benefits. First of all, the security. Who do you trust? Some of these things, anybody can do them. That's why there is limitation to say, occupy this office for 10 years and go. Those things were not just meant for purposes of writing a constitution. Look at our neighbors in Kenya, and I know we are coming to that. Who is peacefully walking in Mombasa yesterday, giving high five to people, chatting, he can eat in any restaurant. Here people move with a convoy of members. They are scared of their shadows. Isn't that already telling for you who wants evidence that there is something wrong? Every minister has 2 vehicles.
At least.
Yes. At the time, sorry, unfortunately, when there was an attempt on General Katumba Wamala, everybody was asking where was his security? Meaning that it is abnormal for a person of his stature to move with only bodyguards in the car. That's where we have reached as a society. Which other evidence do you need? People have been assassinated in broad daylight, including an assistant IGP, assistant DPP, and many others. What other evidence do you need to show that our society is not at peace? If it is at peace, can you move without convoys of bodyguards? If this society is at peace and there is no problem, can you abandon the convoys? Can the president take a walk the way we saw Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday? Can he take a walk and chat with people and give a high five? Can he dare? There is a problem in this country that we must deal with. The way forward, we need a honest conversation. We need leadership on this question. We need national cohesion as a country.
Honest conversation, not people who are denying evidence which is in front
Which
of
is
them.
in front of him every way.
Dr. Besigye, briefly also weighing on that, this whole issue of Uganda mourning the death of Tumwine. I don't know how they know, because I think I have seen people who have openly written on social media.
But then most of those, some of those people are
Uganda. So what does
don't
this
have to blackmail the
mean
people.
for this country? You saw what happened during the elections when it was a Uganda issue that Tumwine had got about 60% in Uganda, yet President Museveni had got over 70% in Ankole.
But for him,
it is a deliberate
very unfortunate
approach to divide those who are opposed to you. It is the oldest tactic in the books.
Yeah.
Divide and rule. Even the British, the reason they kept us governed as their captives for 70 years was precisely that. So you see, in the earlier years of Mr. Museveni's rule, he had placed a divide between the north and the south, and always created the impression the north are enemies and I am your protector against them. You know, if I go, you are in trouble. Kony is coming. They are coming back, the killers of Ruwero. are coming back. It was a boogie. Now, when he started getting problems
In part of the south.
in the south, especially when we also came up to challenge him, who were from the south, from the south also. Now he started seeing that this cannot work. And in fact, I told the people in northern Uganda that I will not be surprised if eventually Museveni seeks refuge here in the north. Because what he has been playing on in the south is turning against him. That was, and all this you can go back and find my messages in the campaigns. And that is what is happening now. So this whole appointment of people from the north and from Teso, that the vice president, the speaker, the chief justice, the Norbert Maus, all this is. And that's why the youth thing was in the, so he now finds more, and I'm sure he will increasingly find more comfort in those places. And so he has shifted the patronage, which he was, because don't forget, he was in fact saying that NRM had united people in earlier years. It's not true. In earlier years, the people in the north were in camps. 1,000 people were dying weekly in camps, as a result of the conditions there. In the whole government, there were only 2 ministers.
There's evidence of that coming from the north.
In the whole government, there were only 2 ministers. There were hardly people appointed into senior government positions. One time, from my small district of Rukunjiri, we had 10 RDCs from one district. We had 4 ministers.
After your candidature?
We had 4 ministers from our district and influential ministers, The whole of the north had only 2. So that was a deliberate attempt to patronize the south, create a divide. Now that has changed. So now appointments are going to the north and the east and other things. In fact, again, I have very terrible views about our elites, as you, I'm sure, know by now.
We know.
I have heard some despicable voices coming out now from Central saying that, by the way, I think we should also negotiate with Museveni. You see, the North has now negotiated. They are now getting, they are getting things. They are sharing on the North. So maybe in the center, they were saying, you see, in the center, the Kabaka negotiates for his cultural things. Maybe the religious leaders negotiate for the. We are not negotiating for our own things also.
What are their things?
To share in the patronage so that they get more jobs, they get more, So it's rather than looking at this whole thing as being inimical to the stability, to the sustainable growth of our country. To have somebody just playing around with the population. So this, what you are talking about, is deliberate divide and rule. So now I think there is an attempt to isolate Buganda, because indeed there is no doubt that Buganda has taken a position. Previously, again, it was being confused because we returned the Kabaka, I am the one who, and that's why even ahead of the constitution, it was deliberate to restitute the kingdom so that it is seen as a person who, it is Museveni, not the constitution. It is Museveni who has restituted. So you owe it to me. And he tried to ride on that for some time in Buganda. It has now ceased, and Buganda has taken a position. So now he's renegotiating into what was there in the 60s to isolate Buganda. He now wants to encircle Buganda. Use the north and the east and play on the west so that they isolate Buganda and crush it. It's not just to isolate it, to crush it, just like happened in the 60s. And this is why I have been telling, the people of Buganda that it is coming. It is coming, So we must all as Ugandans see clearly what the intentions of the regime, the evil intentions of the regime are. And we must say no. We must all unite to say enough of your tricks, get out. And we reorganize the country on equal basis. We have equal opportunities, we have equal voices in the country, and we move forward.
Thank you, Doctor.
I have a follow-up comment
Yes.
on this. About national unity. Dr. Besigye says that it is a fallacy to say all this long at the initial stage, the movement had brought unity. But I want to emphasize this.
No, given what was happening in Northern Uganda.
Yes, I want to say this, that Besigye was NPC. I don't know how it was going down, but for those of us who are private soldiers in 86 would know. For example, if you pass along Lohom Street, do you know that you'd hear songs being sung like Bagende Bagende, that let them go where they were born, let those Anyanya go. Now, as you said, these were just looking at anybody who looked like Northerner. And I used to amuse myself.
And now they are singing.
I used to amuse myself like, look, Colonel Karim was a commanding officer in a Lubiri. And Karim, by all standard, in collection of arms, like you ambush both soldiers, you attack a detached, he was the one who had collected the biggest number of rifles. He was only superseded by Saleh. So I said, now, poor Karim is in Lubiri, and Karim cannot walk on Lohom Street with all this. Now, over time, it was deliberately done that, forget about that, we are Ugandan came. Now, when you talk about the issue of the camp, if you ask yourself, being in the camp was in whose best interest? Being in the camp was in the people's best interest. Why? Any civilian who was found in the bush by Kony was either killed or their lips were cut or whatever it is. So it is the civilians who wanted to be in the camp. But it seems like there has been deliberate move to say the camp was for the enemy. For what? So that they do what in the bush? After all, after the camp, they have gone back to their land. So what was the intention?
To find the land taken.
No, the land nobody has taken. So the camp it was the civilians who were crying to the army, where can you protect us? And the army couldn't protect the entire village or the entire sub-county or district. So that's why they're in one place. So national unity was brought. Compared to 86, Doctor,
so the two ministers from the whole region, that was because the others were not qualified.
Well, the appointment of ministers
and other public officials, of course, yes. It's a discretion.
I don't know.
Was it fairly exercised? That's the question.
Well, by then, first of all, there are few ministers. The discretion of how to appoint, I don't know. Because, like in your case, there would be historical and which we are not there in the north. Now, the point here is, where we started from in 86, where you'd pass Lohom Street and you'd hear songs being played from door to door. Bagende, Azala, something, let them go where they were born. In 86, when Museveni was in power, deliberately as movement, deliberately, the secretariat and everybody else, national unity was achieved. The being in the camp was in the best interest of the people. If they were in the bush,
Kony would kill them. Now, I'm seeing that tribal sentiment is coming. So I don't want to lose the point that national unity was achieved.
Sarah
Just
wants
a
to
quick
respond.
question, Afanda, which not a response. I visited northern Uganda when people were staying in concentration camps, and when the children used to trek to sleep on the streets for security. And once in a while, those camps would even be overrun by Kony. And then if you Google the Kony attacks camps, you would see several. So it's not that it was guaranteed security. I think it's not fair to the people of northern Uganda and the manner in which they suffered. Because people were faced almost with no choice. I interacted with youth and women, and some woman asked me and said, by then I wasn't a mother, I was so young, said, which mother can surrender their children to be killed? We are attacked, our children kidnapped and forcefully recruited into Kony home, Kony army. Once in a while they escape, they come here to eat food. When they come here to eat food, the army enters from the other side. Which mother would surrender their child, who is forcefully abducted and brainwashed, and the army is looking for them to kill them, that they are rebels? What should we do? The women asked us that question. The children who were trekking
Sir,
sleep
I'm
on the
confused.
Okay,
I
let's-
don't know what you're saying.
No, I know. Let me summarize. I'm talking about the plight of the people,
Yeah.
and whether that was unity. We visited the children. One child asked us, and we had somebody to translate, that you are from Western Uganda. Are you born the same way we are born? Why are we suffering? Of course, in local language, it was a bit vague and it was painful. So when you look at that, and even to us, you said when northerners would be passed, people would say agenda. Do you see the comments on social media when we pass Chengera to go for Christmas? Everybody posts, please stay there, please.
I think we should revisit
The point Sarah raised, that children come to town, trek to town, simply fortifies my point. I was saying that children or camps were for safety.
I think
The running of the children to
Afanda,
town, we are
which-
looking for safety.
Okay.
Similarly, they would go to
I am
the
going
camps.
to suggest we revisit the issue of national unity and whether
As in-
NRM actually at any point achieved national
No.
unity or not.
No.
But let's continue and finish this. I wanted us to get back to the Kenyan election and we wrap up. And in the Kenyan election, I wanted to start with you, Dr. Besigye. You had mentioned about it at the start, but my question is, as someone who has participated in an election in this country, and having observed or toward the election in Kenya, as you called it, us here on social media, we kept saying, I remember commenting on Charles Onyango's post and said, but you people have rubbed salt in our wounds, because they kept saying, at this time, there's no one whose house has been put surrounded by the army. At this time, there's no candidate who is detained. And I kept saying, you people, it's enough. You have really rubbed it in long enough. But later then it turned out that what we celebrated, some of the things we celebrated, like the transparency with the results being on the portal for everyone to tally, probably didn't turn out as well as everyone had thought. What was your view of the election? And we have discussed it before, but not hearing from you.
You see, I had you sort of attempt to compare what goes on here and what goes on there.
That's what was happening.
The two
here.
are totally incomparable. And for a very good reason. You see that I told you that here all state institutions are captive. There is no independent, competent state institution. In fact, that process of capture has been progressive from 1986. It progressed very fast in some institutions, it progressed a little slower in others, but now it's, for all intents and purposes, complete. Because like you see in the judiciary, because of some judicial, of some protections of tenure of judicial officers, it took a bit of time for those who had been appointed prior to 1986 to fizzle out. Even those who were appointed in the early phases of the NRM government before it had faced electoral challenges, so before 1996, again, people were being appointed, and of course there were no parties then. Everybody was assumed to be in the movement and so on. So the judicial officers that were appointed in those first 10 years, there were those who turned out to be quite independent-minded and professional and so on and so forth. Those have since been, phased out. And so the, building of the institutions that we have been with a central objective of regime survival. All the institutions, whether they are financial institutions, whether they are political institutions, whether they are judicial, administrative institutions, in the law, we had originally said that another DC shall be a senior civil servant appointed by the president. And these were very deliberate insertions in the Constitution to immunize those offices from partisanship and manipulation. That was changed. So now we are at a point where RDCs are openly NRM activists.
Yeah.
And where if there is an election, they come with all their official assets to violate the laws and the processes of an election. So the institutional capture in Uganda has been progressing and has reached its climax. In Kenya, as this was progressing, the liberation process was also progressive. First, to liberate Kenya from Moi, who was the Kenya's Museveni, who had captured all state institutions and employed a comprehensive patronage in the country and so on and so forth. So the people fought the fight we are fighting now to remove Moi, to create a new constitutional order that provides for term limits. So it started with now having an election in which Moi was not on the ballot because they had achieved that. Here we are yet to achieve that. But even after achieving that, as we have seen from Kenya, the management of a transition takes time. But they have made major steps. So first of all, they made a new constitution that was negotiated by the people of Kenya with significant checks and balances, which include, of course, those term limits, which include decentralization of power through the creation of the 47 counties. So Kenya, for all intents and purposes, is like a federal government. The governors have a lot of power, and the state, the county governments, the parliament of the county, they have resources that are automatically coming to the county. They don't have to beg for money from the center and so on and so forth. There is an agreed constitutional mechanism that provides resources to the counties. So they have changed the legal framework, the constitutional legal framework. But the reason it changed is that the people had won the struggle. So there was a struggle to be won that now, having been won, is structuring the power the people won. So the people first won the power. They are now structuring their power by creating the legal framework, by creating the institutions. The institutions still have problems, and it's a process. So the elections that they have had, 2017, 2012, had issues. But after every election, they make reforms. And those reforms make the subsequent process much better, more transparent. So in this particular election, as I pointed out at the beginning, everything went smoothly generally. The problematic area is the technology. In other words, the transmission, the identification, voter identification, biometric voter identification, the kits that are used, and the kits that transmit the results to the tally center, including the portal, the public portal which you are talking about. That is where there is now a conversation, nowhere else. And I'm sure arising out of what is going on in the courts today, we are going to have more checks and reforms that will make even that better. And that is why, their process is far. While that is going on, you've been seeing what has been going on here in the by-elections. I don't even know why we would attach the word election. It's a totally misnomerous, because an election is supposed at least to have some basic tenets that reflect that population is freely engaged and that there is some. So here we have to first win the power to afford us to make the constitutional and legal reforms, institutional reforms that then will engender a democratic society.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to talk to us about the ongoing petition right now. The 8 petitions that were filed in court, I think, last week.
Okay, maybe before I go to the petition, building on what the doctor has said, I think Kenyans, to a bigger extent, have reclaimed their power in those struggles. Because their constitution in Article 1 is similar to ours. All power belongs to the people. But here citizens voice out concerns and they are comfortably ignored because they cannot do anything. Whereas in Kenya, when the citizens threaten, then the leadership is repressed. Because first of all, Kenyans have demonstrated capacity that they can bring everything down. And that's part of their power. They went through the bloodbath in the 2007 post-election violence. Even in this election, as we were observing the electoral process that seemed largely peaceful before the transmission and the verification, everybody was worried about the delay of results. Don't delay the results because the people might get on the streets. Anxiety will cause us problems. Everybody was mindful of that. So you see that the people have power because the leadership is scared of how they are likely to act. During the economic strife, I remember the first time fuel went up in Kenya, and everybody with the car said, we are parking the cars. One day, government had to sit with the fuel dealers and say, what do we do about fuel? The people have the power. But here, whether the fuel dealers who are in connivance with some of the crooks in leadership, even if tomorrow we woke up and the fuel is 10,000, there is nothing you can do. And they will arrogantly tell you that we cannot do anything. And the people have no power.
But
away from that, I know we don't have time, and I hope we shall come back and reconstitute the same panel to discuss the national question.
On that issue of the constitution, which Dr. Besigye talks about and himself, it's actually largely like our constitution.
But with more freedoms and independence.
What I want to know, look at how the judges are appointed the other side. It's the same as here.
No.
Public
scrutiny. Actually, the president has not happened. The appointment of the president is ceremonial.
No, I mean, even here, according to the law, even here, the president is supposed to, these are supposed to be nominated by the Judicial Service Commission.
We don't have public scrutiny. We don't have checks on integrity. So those are they picked our constitution and improved it.
What makes this difference in your?
Yes, let me look at appointment of anybody in public service. You go through public scrutiny. The public brings their issues. It's like the announcements in marriage. Anybody with a complaint why the two cannot be united. So anybody with a complaint on why such a person should not occupy public service.
Even the interviews are public.
Yes, it brings it and it is attended to. Interrogated, is it true or false? If it is true and you are not fit for public service, you are not fit.
Even here.
Where does that happen?
Judicial service.
But he's right, and this one.
No. I'm talking general public service. You know, we have a parliament where people are approved. Or on points of mercy, no, he's a good person, she's a good person. So your prerogative of mercy, you be a minister.
Sir, understand
no, I'm
my
coming.
Question.
Judiciary.
Have you understood my question?
Judiciary goes through public adverts. Judicial Service Commission does interviews and makes recommendations.
The interviews are not public.
Interviews are not public. There is no room for public participation and public scrutiny. And then out of political interference, the people channeled out. Like now the judiciary is full of cadre judges to a bigger extent. There are those who are independent and liberal, but they are isolated. Look at the time we spent 2 years without a Chief Justice. You think we didn't have Judicial Service Commission? We had the Judicial Service Commission. Names were taken to the president and he ignored them. And there was nothing you could do. You cannot do that in Kenya.
And that's
so that's the difference.
What makes us, the people of Kenya, be more powerful in terms of the Constitution, Article 1, which is the same in both constitutions, and us here just complacent with whatever comes?
Whereas we have the same Article 1, we have 46 articles in the Constitution. And when we come to discuss, I hope you will chair that panel. You moderate it. We should even mention some of these articles that give the president powers to appoint all leaders of parastatals and constitutional commissions in Uganda. He's exceeding his powers to take over jobs in corporate governance, like the way he appointed the CEO of Uganda Airlines. He's exceeding his limits. But anybody to go to electoral commission as a commissioner, it is the president to appoint. What makes matters worse is a rubber stamp parliament in our context. So you have a parliament that cannot scrutinize and overturn people that are not fit for offices they are appointed to. In just the recent concluded cabinet, our Anti-Corruption Act is clear. Once you are convicted of a crime, whether you plead guilty or not, there is a conviction. Even when you plead guilty, you only save court's time. You spend 10 years without occupying
Public office.
What did the president say? Vulgarization. He appointed somebody, the niece of the wife, previously convicted on global funds. For 10 years had not passed. He said, how do you punish a person twice? She pleaded guilty, she paid the fine, why are you punishing her again? overturning the law, impunity. And Parliament had no capacity to even protect the laws that they make. So that's the difference.
Okay, I saw Awich wanted to, was noting to respond where you have misled us.
I just wanted to say that the procedure may be different, or even the procedure may not be ordinary seen by all eyes. But in Judicial Service Commission, there's provision for the public to question and query. I know for a fact that in the recent appointment, even at a lower level of a chief magistrate, a question came over her. It was raised that you appointed this person, but we have ABCD. Now,
After appointment.
before the
After
appointment,
even-
even,
How did they know?
she had done the interview.
Interviews.
Yes, but interviews are not published.
They are not public.
So how did they know
How
that
did
he
you
was
know?
even doing an interview?
It is advertised,
Yes.
and it is even put on public notice that the following will be doing
Do
interview.
you attend the interview?
No, not
You
the
tell her you are
one.
there.
Yeah, that's-
Excuse me.
yeah.
I know the one you want, like the Kenyan one we have been watching on the TV.
Yeah.
When they are being interviewed, everybody watches on the TV. That one is not done. In the
Yeah, even the
Judicial
ones
Service.
doing the interview, we don't know.
Yeah, so this one was done, and that's why I'm saying the depth may be a little different. But what I know is that this lady was known to have applied, was known to be doing the interview, but members raised query, and it impacted on our appointment. So that is true here. The depth and what may vary, but it is there. Two, I wanted to say that Parliament, in positions that go to Parliament, it's not true that they just push everybody. I know for a fact many people who were pushed out.
Like who?
Like the
Say yeah.
the MP from Busoga. I think she was from Kadaga's district, Besigye or somebody. She was appointed a minister, and she never got it.
She had a
Sere Kamba was appointed a minister, and she never. So the number is
The thing is
list
that
is
there
long.
are even those who have been
Yes.
refused, but Museveni has insisted. So what that now means is that those he wants, he will stick with them. There's that, so that's this
That is not
sentiment.
true.
First, wait.
Eh.
I want to talk about Seya, for example, is the one I remember, Dofhead, who was given a ministerial position but rejected. There are reports that President Museveni sent him there knowing that he will be rejected. And so it will be that I had appointed you. The people he has wanted, we can start with the late Aronda. We can go now to Alice Kaboyo. We can go to, there's an issue with Nantaba's.
Even General Saleh.
The people he has wanted, they have gone through. So those that have not, it's because he has not written letters to the speaker and said you have to appoint them. Because I have seen the letter, especially the Honorable Baronda letter, that was 2013. So I understand where you're coming from, and that's where I also asked that question, that just like the Kenyan constitution, even here, the duty to conduct interviews, the responsibility is with the Judicial Service Commission, which would ordinarily, if we followed the law, also leave the president with the ceremonial power to just approve, until when the Judicial Service Commission sent him names of people and how they had performed, and he said, no, you send me more, all the people that sat interviews, and he started choosing from the bottom.
And,
That cannot
and
be-
in the
that
Kenyan,
can't be the
in the
problem of
Kenyan
the law.
I
situation
thought you
also,
had asked me a question, Agatha. Now you are talking by yourself. Now,
Doctors,
what I'm saying is,
Let
it is not completely true that list that are sent to Parliament is a rubber stamp. We have a long list of people who are rejected. But you are saying there are other people that the appointing authority have insisted or have let others go, either way. It's because he personally, and plus technical advice, is not convinced. For example, I personally participated in removing a minister who was appointed, and he agreed.
Convinced about what? There was
For
a law
example, on
saying
the
certain
legality,
army cannot be
for
minister.
example,
What else does he need to be
I
convinced
give the
about?
example that she gave on Alice Kaboy. You see, when the president argues this, he's also given the argument by Attorney General. So you're now putting
What does the law say?
you're putting Sarah's legal interpretation with the legal interpretation given by to the president by Attorney General.
What does the law say?
you can't now go into the detail. But Sarah, that is your opinion.
No, what does the law say verbatim?
The law prescribes for a duration.
10 years.
Yes.
Without occupying public office.
Yes.
Wasn't that the argument of Parliament?
No, have the 10 years passed? Let's start from there.
Have the 10
I
years
don't
passed?
even have the facts now. No, but let me first develop my point.
Yes.
My point is, the president to argue, even on matters of medical, when he's talking to Minister of Health, he is advised by the doctors. So even in matters of the law, like in this case, the Kaboyu case, is advised by the Attorney General. Now, Sarah's legal interpretation in Attorney
Which you have
General,
confirmed.
please let me finish my case, is that she has her legal opinion. The president got legal opinion from the Attorney General, and he was persuaded to do what he did.
Major Awich.
So then
Do you know
need to-
there's an Attorney General who was given a certificate of incompetence?
Yes,
How
but that
do
is
you think-
no, the interaction can't go on like this. What I'm saying is, now there are many cases that go on like that. I said even on matters of medical, the president gets medical advice, expert opinion. So in the same case, he got expert opinion. Sarah is right to her legal opinion. Maybe if you thought it was wrong, somebody would have challenged. And laws are only interpreted in courts.
Afande,
So that is the position.
It
Now,
is not subjective. That opinion is not subjective.
No, any legal opinion outside court is your opinion.
Wow.
Laws are only interpreted in courts. Anything outside court is your opinion. So the president got that opinion. Sarah hold her opinion. That is hers. Two, I have personally participated. If you think Museveni can't allow those who have been appointed, I participated in removing a minister who was appointed. Minister for the Fisheries. Achieng, they were appointed two UPC, Achieng and Amoy, the daughter-in-law of Obote. So, DC MP,
Both two daughters-in-law of Obote.
no, one, Amoy. So, there was a controversy that they have appointed on opposition from Lang. So, I was privy to have been called in a team that went to meet the president. We objected. Achieng was appointed Minister for Fisheries. I put up my point. I said, no, this can't go. He ordered Nankabir said, Rain Kadaga not to approve. Achieng was supposed to appear before Parliament Committee. So the fear or the illusion that the president gets that opinion and nobody can change it, we need to think again. And also we are precedent where Parliament rejected. Only where he has stood strong is where he has been advised technically, whether on medical or legal, that it is correct. Okay? So, that is the position. About the election in Kenya, I think you may want me to go there. Yeah. But before that, you posed a question which Sarah didn't answer. That the same construction of Article 1 is similar to the construction in Kenya. And by the way, the Kenyan constitution, the brain behind are Ugandans, Professor Sempewa and Professor Kanyamba. So your question was, why is it that in Kenya, people act differently? She did give the answer. The answer is, and this was done, we recently had a SEC member, because I sit in SEC as a director. The president said, if we have to mobilize the people, it is only when you meet the needs of the people. Now, why Ugandans don't rise up and Kenyans do is because in the hearts of people, they see nothing warranting. We strongly believe in power belongs to the people. We do not in NRM believe that you can surprise people by artillery, you can't surprise people by Mamba, you can't surprise people by Air Force. You can't. The people have the power. But why the Kenyans react that way and the Ugandans is in the hearts of the people. Okay. The people are convinced.
Okay, thank you.
People are okay.
So,
otherwise, where do you get the Mamba and the aeroplane to surprise the people?
Thank you.
Never.
I wanted to clarify that you cannot gag us on the opinion of the Attorney General. Like I said, we had an Attorney General that ULS gave a certificate of incompetence because of the
late land Attorney General.
The late Nyombi of
the
the legal opinions.
Yes.
If the law says 10 years, and this woman pleaded guilty.
It's a matter of
she
mathematics.
Just pleaded guilty.
It's a matter of
interpretation.
mathematics.
One needs to know that the law says this, and it is not yet 10 years that have passed. We don't need an Attorney General for that. If the UPDF Act says that there's no serving member of the UPDF that will be a minister, we don't need the Attorney General's interpretation of that. But
And another Attorney General, the land Attorney General Kidu Makubuya.
Yes, they are Kidu Makubuya.
You see, Agatha, we are taking facts and put them on the top. You need all these facts to set. You see, you don't take it so lightly. For example,
Can I come back to you?
Let other people go.
Because I had
why are you fearing me?
We are,
No, you are just misleading.
I had-
Why you
I had-
Why let them judge?
Okay.
Let the people judge.
let
Who
me
are
the
you to say they are
moderator.
being
Let me
misled?
the moderator judge, and let's hear from other people. We can come back to you.
Yeah,
later.
I was just saying that talking about Attorney Generals, which I think is a demonstration of this level of state capture. You know, it's not that these Attorney Generals actually don't know the law,
Yeah.
but they must give advice that the one who has power wants. Because institutions serve those who have power. That's why they cannot serve the people, because people have no power. And so there is a man called Kidu Makubuya. Kidu Makubuya actually is a professor,
Yeah.
Who was the best at my
was a professor of law. I understand he got a first class
Yes.
honors.
Yeah.
I think he went to one of the
And you know what it means to get a first class in law.
he went to one of the EVE schools of law. I think he was in Harvard School of Law or something, where he got his master's and doctorate or something. And Kidu Makubuya penned, not even just spoke, but penned an opinion that there are levels of innocence. That somebody who is accused, if I've been charged, I am at a different level of innocence from the one who is not. And he gave that opinion in suggesting that because I had been charged with treason,
You can't be nominated.
I cannot be nominated as a candidate because I
Your level of, you had surpassed.
yes, Professor Kidu.
But which wants
Makubuya.
us to take their, their opinions.
So
as-
those are your advisors.
No. That's not what I said.
Don't-
I said opinion is opinion. Attorney General, whatever he says, is his opinion.
yes.
And Sarah is opinion. So laws are only interpreted.
No,
in court.
all
And by the way, for that story, some of us with our OB, the MP for Nakawa, we rejected that opinion. We said it is your
But it was the Attorney General.
Yes,
It was
Attorney
so you are saying that
It is
because
opinion.
you are saying that.
And by the way,
You are saying- you see-
apart from Attorney General, there are other legal advisors in State House who are not even Attorney General.
The reason I'm saying this is that you were saying that if the Attorney General advises the President that even if it's
That
not
who is
10
Sarah
years,
to-
that even if it is
to
not yet
contradict.
10 years after this person committed a crime, that it is okay for that one to be appointed, that then Museveni would be covered.
No,
Because-
that's not what I said.
I'm going to
That's not what I said.
And any other
That is
any
not
other
what I said,
person with,
doctor. No, that's not what I said. I said he acted on a legal opinion.
of the Attorney General.
There is even the Kichoncho, all those people are there. In those days, the Fox Odoi. The president can get legal advice, even not from Attorney General. Yes, but what I'm saying is,
Time has gone.
no, what I'm saying is, he got the opinion there. And I said, Sarah has her opinion. I said, these are two opinions.
We have-
So he had the right to take which opinion he wanted.
I have-
Now you can only challenge it in a court of law. And I said, opinion, as long as laws are only interpreted
I am
in
going
court.
to ask
So
one
that was
last
his
question.
opinion. And he took the
Awich,
opinion.
Major Awich, I'm going to ask one last question, and unfortunately, I'm going to ask only Dr. Besigye, and we end this. The petition in Kenya, considering the petitions that have happened here, two you have been the petitioner. What is the difference in the Supreme Court handling the petition in Kenya and the presidential election petitions we've seen here?
Well, unfortunately, I have to disappoint you that I haven't been very closely following the handling of the case of this particular petition so far. But,
Sarah will help you
but,
later.
but,
She
but
has
what,
been following.
what I know that has distinguished the Supreme Court in Kenya in their management of petitions prior to this one, and I believe this one is also affected, is that they have taken the position that where the quality of the process of the election has been found wanting, the outcome cannot stand. This is in regard to what, first of all, for them, they inquire. It's not a trial like we have here. And this is a point the justice, the Honorable Justice Kanyeyamba has been struggling to put across. Even our own constitution, and he's right, they took a lot of what was in our constitution and took it on board. Even our own constitution orders for an inquiry, not a trial where you just present evidence and the evidence is analyzed. The court is required to investigate, and therefore to seek the truth itself. Even if you haven't brought it up sufficiently, they should proactively seek the truth.
Yeah.
The Kenyan court has been advancing that very significantly, the inquiry bit. Secondly, they have taken very seriously the quality rather than the quantity. Here, there is the substantiality clause in the Presidential Elections Act, which we tried to challenge even in the Constitutional Court unsuccessfully, where here the courts in the rulings of the petitions that we filed in 2001 and in 2006 had taken the view of requiring the petitioner to prove substantiality of the malpractices and whatever went wrong that you are complaining of to the court, to show that it would have brought a different outcome. And one very I think peculiar presentation that was made in one of those petitions was with regard to the killings that happened at Volange in the 2006 elections, where 3 people were killed. My posters, they were lying on the floor, on the ground, covered by my posters, election posters. These pictures went all over in the media, and this was one of the points of petition. The fellow who had killed them was a fellow called Lieutenant Magara. Eventually, he was convicted. He has served his 14 years. I think he must be out now. Now, that in that petition, the response of the Solicitor General, who was representing the Electoral Commission then, said that, you see, these 3, it was unfortunate that these 3 supporters died, but surely, even if they had not died, they would have only cast 3 votes. Now, the difference in the votes that the petitioner and the one declared to have won is 1.5 million votes. So surely, how could these 3 votes, even if they hadn't died and had voted, how would it cause a change? And in the rulings, they were tending towards that argument that one needed to show not show that there was cheating, that there was ballot stuffing, but that you needed to show that the ballot stuffing was of a magnitude that would have brought a different outcome. Now the Kenyan courts have emphasized the qualitative element rather than the quantitative element, and that is at the heart of the matter. And if you take that together with the inquiry, for them taking the view that they will inquire rather than interrogate just the litigants, what evidence they are bringing and what defense the other one is bringing, and you say now weighing what this one has brought without you seeking the truth. I think that's where I would put the biggest differences between our courts and their courts.
Okay, Sarah, as we end, please.
Yeah, we you know, the Kenyan laws, electoral laws, first of all, allows any party to challenge a presidential election, including candidates, political parties that sponsored those candidates,
even
and
voters.
Citizens, voters. Any eligible voter can file a petition, and it is not burdensome to file a petition. The second outstanding issue is the independence of the court.
So here it is only candidates.
Yeah, even the party cannot.
Yes.
The second outstanding issue is the independence of courts. Courts work without interference. And I want to say this in comparison with the Bobi Wine petition. When Bobi Wine filed the petition, and at that time, when he chose to withdraw it, first of all, he filed literally under house arrest. He was under siege, could not even pass through his gates. And the crime he committed was just offering himself for presidency, just like what has always happened to Dr. Kiiza Besigye here, so it's not new. So the courts, when at the time he withdrew his petition, he said one of the reasons was that the Chief Justice had a secret meeting with the president. Many people tried to deny, but just recently, Sunday Monitor published how a police officer who sneaked the CCTV footage of a Chief Justice secret meeting with the president during petition was fired, meaning that it was true. So you have our courts here being twisted, and Professor Kanyamba has written his experiences over the two petitions he has. So it is documented. The twisting is documented by one of the retired Supreme Court judges, the calls, the intimidation, and all that happens. On the other hand, in Kenya, you have the judges truly dispensing justice without fear or favor. They have issued two key decisions at the beginning of the court's part of their interstitial orders. Was the recount in 15 polling stations, the spot check to check the credibility of the results, then also the opening of servers, fully supervised by the registrar of the Supreme Court and her team. And the court gets, I think, hourly updates on the exercises that were concluded this morning. And I think reports have been tabled in courts on the recount exercise and full scrutiny of ballot materials in the selected polling stations, as well as the audit of the servers and the transmission of results processes. So you have this verifiable process that enables court to do an inquiry and reach an independent decision as to whether the true will of the people of Kenya is what was quantified and announced in an election. And I hope, and that's why you see there is very high trust in the judiciary of Kenya. And everybody is in their work comfortably waiting for the pronouncements of court, because they know that whatever will come out will be the truth. So that is another issue that stands out. We have a team of jurists from Africa and Commonwealth, and Uganda is represented by Professor Lilian Tubatema. I wish the Chief Justice himself, who is alleged to have had that secret meeting on how to handle petition, I wish he had gone to get a first-hand experience of how a election petition is handled.
Thank you, Sarah. I will give Awich 2 minutes to concluding remarks. If you want to conclude with the Kenyan election against Uganda's petitions or any other.
I will make
subject
general
you have.
conclusion. In that there had been hope, against hope from our opponents that the Kenyan election would really show that we have a very long way to go as a government or
It did.
as a country. Now,
There are no facts.
remember
evidence.
that Kenya, to reach where they are, they at one time even could not manage themselves. They were tearing an armor from ICC. ICC had to hold an armor on them. And even now, the apparent discipline, one doubts whether it is a homegrown discipline or it is a discipline with an armor from ICC. But we have grown our own discipline. We have managed so far. I only wish them well in their petition. But we have proved that we have a homegrown system with challenges like the procedural gaps, like the inquiries, like others, that we keep on growing and developing. But we are not that bad.
Unfortunately, I think we'll have to end here. But I had wanted Dr. Besigye to briefly talk about the retirement of General Sejusa. I don't know if you can do that in 2 minutes, but
Well, I think just to congratulate those who have successfully retired, especially the ones who found it very, very difficult to retire.
why? Why is it difficult to retire?
Because you see, I told you about the capture of institutions. One of the institutions that was captured earlier on was the military itself, which captured power. So the military captured
Power?
the power,
And after
and
it was captured.
it was immediately also captured by Mr. Museveni family. And so there have been people in the military who have been unhappy about that being captured because they didn't seek to go and become even career soldiers like me. I never set out to become a soldier. I only left my medical work to go and reestablish my voice in this country. Not to become a career soldier, but it took me about 7 years to retire, having applied, denied, until I fought literally to eventually win my retirement.
We have read about how they wanted you to stay, but
yes,
you had to come out
yes.
of the gates.
And so my colleagues have suffered in a similar way. I know many who have stayed in the military against their will for many, many years. And that is because really Mr. Museveni is worried about their freedom. So when you are in the military, they use the military law to really hold you hostage. Like you saw in the case of General Tumukunde, that he had spoken something that was not
Pleasant.
yes, and he was imprisoned for years for having said something. Of course, you have seen General Muhoozi Kainerugaba say openly political and partisan things in his uniform, and nothing is happening. So the fact that those who are in the who have been in uniform are believed to have the possibility of challenging the system, they are found safer to be held under the military law. And so I only, wish them well. There is a lot of reform that is needed in the military sector, and we have said, in fact, the military requires also an independent military commission that manages the promotions, the recruitment, and so on, and hopefully protects servants in the service against capricious actions of people like Mr. Museveni.
Thank you, Doctor. Major Awich, since you are a panelist, a permanent panelist on this show, I will give you a chance next Friday to start by defending the party and the army in regards to what Dr. Besigye has said.
Yeah, but if he defends what I have said when I'm not here to challenge it.
Because it can't be open-ended if people want to go in it. And
yes, so you shouldn't have put the question.
No, because I don't know when I will see you, get you again. We needed to really ask you that question. Thank you very much for being with us. For me, it was an honor to host this panel. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for coming. Thank you to our viewers for staying this long, and thank you to the camera crew for standing and sitting all through. From us at Civic Space TV, it is the Citizens Chat Show. We'll be back next Friday. Have a nice weekend.